Critic, and we're talking about the Baltimore Ravens, a team that they have 11 picks. Again, another team with 11 picks. I find it, if you have more than 7 picks, I cannot help but feel like you're not good. You're getting so many players, in some way it just feels like overkill. You cannot make do with 7, so you need 11 players. 1, it makes a lot of work for me. And 2, what are these 11 players going to do to make you guys better than you guys weren't last year? You guys still lost in the playoffs. You guys still didn't do it. And all you're going to do is waste Derrick Henry's last few good years and then be back to nothing. You paid Lamar Jackson all that money. He was definitely the MVP, and nothing happened. You're back to where you were again, wondering what if. And some even could say you might not even be considered the best team in your own division. So, yeah, Baltimore. This is the Baltimore Ravens 2025 draft recap. Because they got 11 picks, I really don't want to make the videos go on too long. One, it takes so a long time to render this, like hours. So, we'll start officially with the 27th overall pick in the 2025 NFL Draft, the Baltimore Ravens selected Malik Starks, safety, Georgia. Sure. I really thought they would go pass rush, which they did was address in their second pick, so not a complete loss. And also the player they did get, I was quite surprised. The Ravens defense, I felt like has been historically viewed as one of its greatest strengths. But lately, it feels like it's been the offense that's been taking all the attention away. And especially when it comes to playoffs, the Raven defense, good or bad, just doesn't show up consistently. Or the offense lacks. It just never feels like the Ravens get it together in the playoffs when it matters against teams that are also pining for Super Bowl berths, and one of them known as the Kansas City Chiefs. But don't worry, Buffalo's not doing any better, so you two can be more than happy together as the B team every year. And then let's add the Bengals. So we got the Bills, Baltimore, Bengals. B. Because that's all you guys are just the B team because the A team belongs in Kansas City. Malik Starks, the safety from Georgia, is definitely another defensive-minded player to go into your team, especially when I'm looking at your 3-4 defense style. You got players like Kyle Hamilton, and I kind of feel like, a good, strong free safety was something you probably were kind of missing more on the secondary side. But even then, I always felt like a good pass rush can make up for a poor secondary. And with the players you have already in the secondary, I don't know. I just kind of feel like getting Stark was a combination of best available player for a first-round grade versus what we need right now in a position of desire. Safety was probably one of those positions that I was thinking, if he's there, there are some players that I feel like some team be like, if he's there, you don't need him, but how much better could it be with him? Starks feel like that type of player. He was that type of defensive back that was going to be put into the Ravens defense, designed to make it better. Now, as much he's a free safety, so my guess is he's more for aerial cover support, while Hamilton can get more inside the trenches and more to like that hybrid linebacker type style where he's good support in the rushing attack. So to me, Stark was more of he's there. It's not going to hurt not to get him. And sometimes it's much better to reach for interest and excitement than for need. And Starks was not so much a need, but more of he's right there. And I don't think anyone will disagree. He's a first-round grade, and he's right there. So that's how I feel anyway. It's a good pick for the Ravens defense that I always felt like you need to focus on something different. And they did in the second round. With the 59th overall pick in the 2025 NFL Draft, the Baltimore Ravens selected Mike Green, edge Marshall. Mike Green was a player, because I am a Buccaneer fan, so I listen to a lot of Buccaneer reports. Mike Green was one of those players that he was so good in the Senior Bowl, he was so good in the Combine, he was so good his last year in Marshall, that he was talking about potentially, I would give the same comparison of interest like a Khalil Mack from Buffalo. Let's be real, Buffalo's not a program that you really want to spend a first round pick on, especially a top 5 pick. I think Khalil Mack was out of Buffalo for the Raiders. I think it was a 5th pick overall. So, wherever he was a top 10 pick, to my knowledge, correctly. So Mike Green was getting that type of attention. Now, I'm not going to say that Mike Green was a Khalil Mack in that, his talent was just so much greater than the university he went to, but it was just a case of you really need a pass rush, and I was surprised a lot of teams passed on him, especially teams that I thought had a second chance to get him, and they didn't. And the biggest thing I heard was his behavior, his attitude, his whatever the concerns were. I felt like it was more off field than on the field. So I guess sometimes that can scare a team away. Now, for all we know, he could come in and he'd be an upstanding citizen, and then everyone that passed him would be like, well, we should have taken a chance on him. We shouldn't judge a book by its cover or by what he's done recently. But quite frankly, that's all we have to do in the draft. And trust me, there are a lot of scouts, a lot of stories of rookie where they get asked questions that just feel like, what the hell kind of question is that? And they still feel like, what the hell? And they sometimes even use against them because they just don't like the player for whatever reason. We've seen it in this year's draft, and trust me, we will talk about him. Or him. His brother got undrafted, so anyway, we'll talk about him. So Mike Green going to the Ravens. They need a pass rush. Mike Green was there. Hopefully his off the field, flags that were addressed, I guess, kind of quietly out of nowhere. Mind you, I just heard it just out of nowhere. He got drafted. He's going to make an impact for the Ravens. I feel like it's an appropriate pick for him. So to me, this is definitely a Raven pick, and they needed him more than I think the Ravens need him more than he needs the Ravens, honestly. Because I think if Mike Green would have gone anywhere else, Buffalo, Cincinnati, Tampa, Kansas City, I think he would have been just as appreciative. So we go to the 3rd round, and with the 91st pick in the 2025 NFL Draft, the Baltimore Ravens selected Emory Jones Jr., offensive tackle, LSU. Now, they have Mr. Jones. By the way, they have Mike Green as a strong side linebacker. Now, they have Jones Jr. as a backup in the right guard position. So he's viewed as an offensive tackle, but I hear that they're going to move him inside because for reasons that I always feel very fascinating, that offensive tackles are always viewed as one of the bigger offensive linemen on the offensive line in most football teams in high school and college. And then he goes to the NFL and find out that he's kind of one of the smaller ones, or maybe not big enough, or maybe his stances, or maybe he's good more interior. There's a lot of question marks, and we've seen a lot of times tackles going to guards than the other way around. So to me, this probably feels more of a way to get fresh development. Let's be real, the Derrick Henry, agreement is going to end sadly sooner than later, because Derrick Henry has been playing for X number of years and he has been the workhorse. And let's be real, even the most greatest of vehicles eventually will start wearing down. And I'm sure Derrick Henry doesn't want to end his career where basically he is struggling just to, put his cleats on. I'm sure his body, have you ever seen Derrick Henry's workout videos? You honestly feel like he's training for the Justice League. Like, you probably think he's probably Kryptonian or something. Like, he is just that insane, his workout regimen. And also quite impressive for a guy that big to be that athletic and also that incredibly balanced and strong. It's ridiculous. Also, like I said, it feels like he's a superhero. And maybe he is one day. So, seeing the Ravens getting an interior offensive lineman added onto it just feels more for run support. And we'll see how much he gets developed and see, maybe they'll move to offensive tackle later. But right now, he's being moved inside, and that's where he'll be. Then we go to the 4th round with the 129th pick in the 2025 NFL Draft. The Baltimore Ravens selected Teddy Buchanan, linebacker, California. So we're gonna move. So the Ravens run the 3-4 defense, and they're putting our boy Buchanan as a backup right side linebacker behind Trenton Simpson. So when you hear a backup position as a rookie, usually means a rotational player, especially for a 3-4 defense that require 2 inside linebackers at a time. They currently have him as a strong side linebacker because, of course, you get, Roquan Smith on the other side. So, we have a captain already there. So, therefore, he has time to develop, to learn, and definitely get rotation times in there. This feels more of a case of development. Very similar to what the Steelers did in that they want to develop defensive players. So, therefore, 1, they get them kind of cheap. And 2, there's not a massive gap in between who's going to be the next player moving up, stepping forward. So to me, this feels very much of an insurance policy with development opportunities. There's 11 picks. Remember, there's 11 player picks. So I'm trying to give enough details, enough description and want, but also I have to make the video not go 40 minutes long because 1, like I said, it's a long video. 11 picks. I don't know why. Then we go to the 5th round with the 141st pick in the 2025 NFL Draft. The Baltimore Ravens selected Carson Vincent, offensive tackle, Alabama A&M. Right? Alabama A&M? Now, they have Carson. Looks like they're going to keep him on the left side, but he'll be behind Noteboom and Staley on the left side. So, I'm going to say, Alabama A&M. I just want to double check. He's 6'7", 321. Big guy. Small school, so of course level of competition becomes a factor when most evaluating young players. And number 2, how much is he raw and how much is he just needs to get into NFL shape in that he needs to go learn how to go against 28-year-olds and 30-year-old men that basically that rely on their skills to make a mortgage. He's being projected as a left tackle, granted 3rd stringer, but still a left tackle. So not only is he in the most valuable position by most offensive linemen and by most NFL teams because the quarterback's right-handed, but also he's from a smaller school. So I'm going to say he has great potential, great upside, but is still very, very raw, and they want to develop him into eventually probably the next heir in that offensive line side. Now, could they move him to right? I've learned from Hall of Fame defense tackle Warren Sapp that when you get to the NFL, it's no longer I play defensive line. It's left or right. Like, you need to be very precise on what side of the ball you are on, whether you're left or right, because sometimes you could be a 91 and be an 89, depends on where you are. If you're doing overall Madden ratings, you have this comparison. So sometimes you need to find out that you're stronger on your right side. Like, I remember I was always stronger being on the right side. When I was doing outside linebacker edge back in high school, I was more comfortable on my right side than I was on my left side. I don't know why, maybe because I'm better turning inward than I am turning the outside. So that's how I felt anyway. So I'm sure players out there probably have stories they felt better, that mainly played line, what side they were better on, left or right. So to me, this feels more of development, rawness, potential is high. Then we go to the 6th round, which they have like half their picks in the 6th round. With the 178th pick in the 2025 NFL Draft, the Baltimore Ravens selected Bilhan Cohn, cornerback, Western Michigan. So we're going back to secondary help support, and I felt like a lot of time the Ravens secondary probably was picked apart by good passing quarterback for accuracy in between the zones and the gaps, even though I kind of felt like a good pass rush kind of helps that out. But I remember during the Ravens season 2 years ago, especially against the Chiefs in the AFC Championship game, it felt like the Ravens secondary were being picked apart in these, 5, 6 yard, chump plays. They were just being picked apart dot by dot. And honestly, a lot of times I kept complaining was, where's the pass rush? Where's the sacking? Where's this thing? Mahomes has time, and even if he doesn't have time, he still ends to find these gaps in the zone, in and outs. So maybe that's why they're kind of like doubling up on secondary help right now. I still believe that as much as they have, I really believe, defense probably would have been better off as a pass rusher. But for all I know, Mr. Cohn could have been viewed as too talented to pass up. And they currently have him as a right corner already, backup. So definitely being thrust into potentially rotation and scheme system, especially depends on the coverage. So we'll see how quickly he gets involved, and we'll see him in preseason, as I feel like the Ravens are just trying to load up on young, fresh talent for maybe just, let's be real, if they become great, we can still hold them to a rookie deal as long as we can. Let's be real. Kind of hold them cheap for as long as we can. Then, still in the 6th round, like I said, they got like half their picks in the 6th round. It's amazing. With the 186th pick in the 2025 NFL Draft, the Baltimore Ravens selected Tyler Loop, place kicker, Arizona. Now, let's address it. Tucker has been released. He kind of was showing that he was no longer inhuman, but actually human. And then, make matters worse, there were some allegations that definitely reflect badly on his character. And also, maybe the NFL needs to stop advising players to go get massages. Like, seriously, stop it. But also, stupid. Why would we do that? And to get to the childish high school level thing, you're a kicker. You're not that important. Ugh. Let's be real. Let's be real. If you were a kicker in high school, you weren't treated as a football player in most high school circles. Let's be real. Especially if you are a punter, you were not treated very fairly by most of your high school peers. Trust me, I did kicking and punting. Good thing I did other things too, but I did kicking and punting in high school. I wasn't invited to the parties. I wasn't invited to most social gatherings. I was almost embarrassed to say I was a kicker and a punter, because sometimes it's kind of like addressing like, by the way, I'm a loser. So definitely don't want to admit that. But we all know that Tucker has been released, and we said this before, and other teams would have picks. If you're drafted as a punter, drafted as a long snapper, and drafted as a kicker, we all know is that those are normally one player positions. Very rarely there's a backup for it. So he's a starter. Tucker's been released. It kind of makes it official, and we're moving on. Seriously, if you get drafted, if a team is willing to use one of their picks, especially if they only have 7, not 11, it is because they're saying you are going to be our starting punter, our starting kicker, our starting long snapper, and I swear to God, if you ruin this draft pick for us, we will make you suffer for it. Good luck. All right. Still in the 6th round. You're going to hear that a lot from me. With the 203rd pick in the 2025 NFL Draft, the Baltimore Ravens selected LaJohntay Webster, wide receiver, Colorado. Okay, all right. So another wide receiver. I feel like Zay Flowers is great, but I feel like Zay Flowers to me has always been viewed as a number 2. Honestly, they got DeAndre Hopkins. Won't know how much he's have left in his leg, but let's be real. DeAndre Hopkins is your number 1 receiver on default. Zay Flowers and Rashad Bateman, I never view them as number 1. I feel like they were both good number 2 receivers. I mean, if Zay Flowers and Bateman were to go to another team that has a legitimate number 1 already established, they'll be number 2 already. Like, not even a question. And there are some teams that have, plentiful of receivers that have. I mean, the Bengals have 2 number 1 receivers. They would have split them off. They will each be number 1 somewhere else. The Bucks with Evans and Godwin, 2 number 1 receivers. They'll be going somewhere else, and then they got another receiver. There are teams that have number 1 caliber receivers. The Seahawks had like 3 number 1 receivers in Metcalf and Lockett and Smith. So they made choices. It happens, guys. It happens. And for the Ravens, get another wide receiver. I kind of felt like it was more of a, let's go with variety, let's go with quantity, and then we'll pick out the quality in between. But to me, the Ravens don't have a legitimate number 1 receiver. And if they want to talk about their best receiving threat, is Andrews the tight end. And that's kind of like disrespecting the tight end department of all tight ends out there. But let's be real. Even today, with the Jimmy Grahams and the Antonio Gates and the Tony Gonzalez and the Travis Kelce and the Rob Gronkowskis, it was always still like they're the best receiving threat, but the best receiver was always given to the wide receiving department. So, yes, Webster comes in, joins a wide receiving core in Baltimore that really has a bunch of number 2s and no number 1s, and he'll just be fighting for that number 3 and number 4 right now, and who knows how quickly he gets involved into the offense. Let's be real. Still the 6th round with the 210th pick in the 2025 NFL Draft. The Baltimore Ravens select Aeneas Pebbles, defensive tackle, Virginia Tech. I think I ruined that name. Can I call you AP for right now so I don't get butcher your name more? Thank you. People might say, don't. No, you call my real name. It's like, okay, I'm sorry. Defensive tackle. So, 3-4 defense, and they have Pebbles currently as a defensive end. So, like I said before about 3-4 defensive ends, they're basically saying you're a defensive tackle with a little more athleticism, a little bit bigger, a little bit wider. Could be used as a pass rusher more than just a run supporter. But let's be real, when it comes to a 3-4 defense, most defensive linemen, including the defensive ends, are there to take on the blocks and leaving open lanes for the linebackers to come through. Maybe occasionally they can get a sack here and there, but let's be real, they're designed to contain and stuff. Now, I view it as number 2. So, intangibles or lack of depth is there. And for the Ravens' sake, I think young, fresh legs and rotation when it comes to playoff time is probably the reason why they're getting a lot of young defensive players quickly involved into the defense. So therefore, when it comes to playoff time, they got fresh legs to go against the Josh Allens, the Joe Burrows, the Patrick Mahomes, and whoever else gets in that playoff seeding, CJ Stroud. You might want to be able to be prepared for it. So to me, this is meant for depth, rotation, fresh legs for the playoffs, not so much regular season. We'll see how much he gets involved, but I believe this is meant for keeping your star players fresh without dropping off talent. Still in the 6th round, my goodness. With the 212th pick in the 2025 NFL Draft, the Baltimore Ravens selected Robert Longerbeam, corner, Rutgers. Okay, so we're just loading up on defensive players for the Ravens. This is like, what, the 3rd secondary player? The 2nd corner you have there. I know Humphreys is heading towards the end of his career. I know you drafted him. I understand you probably want to help do that. Also, we understand that secondary injuries was a big plague for the Ravens at times. So I get that. I am really surprised that of everything else, you guys didn't invest in another edge at this time. You've gotten defensive tackles and corners. I really thought you would at least invest in another edge rusher somewhere. I thought there was plenty of them late in the draft, but apparently you guys went with secondary for 3rd and 4th strings. And they got Mr. Longerbeam viewed as a nickelback behind Humphrey. So, you got Nate Wiggins before, so we'll see how quickly they get involved, but it looks like, Robert Longerbeam is designed to be nickelback for Humphrey, who we all agree, his career is long and injuries have hurt him in his career, so this could be viewed as development behind a veteran leader in the Humphrey, but also just in case Humphrey, gets a turf toe or a rotated ankle or some injury that puts him out for a few weeks. Let's get this rookie in there quickly involved. So therefore, because let's be real, if the Ravens are willing to cut Tucker, I feel like unless you're Lamar Jackson, no job is safe from the Ravens just saying we got to make decisions. So, and then finally, the last pick in the 7th round. With a 243rd pick in the 2025 NFL Draft, the Baltimore Ravens select Garrett Dellinger, offensive guard, LSU. Okay. When I think of offensive guard, I think of running the ball. I think of because of Derrick Henry, because they want to make the lanes going. And they currently have Garrett as a 3rd string left guard behind Voorhees in Cleveland. Those are 2 separate people, even though they sound like an actual name. Voorhees, Cleveland. My name is Voorhees. And never mind. So, okay, so we got another young offensive lineman. Funny enough, also from LSU. So I guess Emory has a teammate going with the same team. So that's always kind of fun, especially in the same position. So at least he has a buddy. And when a team has 11 picks, I always wonder if the last 3 picks of their 11 pick, sampler is always viewed as the player is raw, the player has an upside, the player has some type of factor, he has like abnormally huge hands, or he's incredibly taller, or he can jump higher, or something that just makes him so like We really don't need that position, but the player is so intangible. We can utilize him in so many different ways. I mean, he's viewed currently as a guard, which the position he did play, and I think that's probably where he's going to be. So me trying to say that he might be moved somewhere else is not going to happen in this story, but I've always felt like players that got double-digit picks, teams that have double-digit picks, I always wonder, one, why do you need that many picks? A lot of picks. Now, granted, the Ravens could just be a case of a lot of people wanted to trade up, and we just said, sure, we'll take the pick. Yeah, we'll take that pick too. Maybe the Ravens weren't thinking too much of we needed player. They're just like, well, since we have all these picks, let's see what we have. Let's develop for the next 3 or 4 years down the line and prepare. Because let's be real, the Ravens are probably the better team already. They just need to get over probably the yips of playoff. Segueing into, that's concluded the Ravens player selection. Where do I have them? They're contenders, guys. They are contenders, they're contenders, they're contenders. But sometimes they feel more like pretenders. So they are the contending team. They're the team that's always going to be in. And I honestly am agreeing with some. The only reason why I am not 100% on the Bengals side is because their defense and the Trey Hendrickson thing has not been resolved yet. So until that's resolved, I'm going to pick the Ravens probably the first team in the AFC North, and then the Bengals. But if something happens, then don't be surprised if the Bengals reclaim the North again. And the player I'm most excited about, let's be real, Mike Green, the guy from Marshall. He was projected to be a first-round pick by many. He did so good and everything else, and then during the draft, it was like, why is he still on the board? Some people had him like as their top 20th pick or the top 15th pick overall, and he was still there at 40. And teams that said, okay, the teams that we thought they were going to get him didn't get him, and now here they come again for the second time, and they skipped him. And then the team that gets him is a team that's contending for a Super Bowl. It's like, who won here? Mike Green or the Ravens? Now, the issues of him off the field, I always kind of feel like, unless he does it in the NFL, I'm going to be like, really? He's a college kid. He made mistakes. Okay. Now, I mean, let's remember, Winston had some allegations. Johnny Manziel had some behaviors. Joe Mixon slapped a woman and still got drafted by the Bengals, who is now a contributor to the Texans. Remember, he slapped a woman in the face on camera, and he's still in the NFL. So I'm just saying, as bad as some of these players were in college and some of the behaviors off the field were, can't help but be like, hopefully it doesn't happen again, and let's mature, because let's be real. There are some players that have somehow gotten worse as adults and professionals that also involve massage parlors. 2 examples. Can't make this shit up. So, that's the Ravens. Steelers are done, and now we're going back to simpler times. And since I've been singing their praises all of this video, the next team we'll be talking about will be the Cincinnati Bengals, as they try to reclaim the North once again, as Joe Burrow has his 2 new toys with big money contracts. A defense that is still more non-existent than the Riddler's riddles for Batman. So we'll see. And at the time of this recording, Trey Hendrickson has not signed with the Bengals or anything has happened with him. I haven't even heard him gone anywhere else yet. I think he's just still like, I'm waiting. For what? We don't know. But next time will be the Bengals of Cincinnati. So until then, I'm Cortez, and I'm a critic. Thank you so very much for watching.